But yeah.
So what all right, so let's start with kind of the basics. Like you said EQ. Why don't we get a little explanation of that as an
Right.
overview?
So EQ, how I finally figured it is like when you pull up an EQ, you see like the graph.
Mm-hmm.
It's the frequency ranges. You know what I'm saying? So the 5,000, 7,000 side, 10K side, that's all the high part. Then you got the middle, which is like the 1,000 to like 700 or something like that. And then you got the low end, which is everything below that, which is the part that I didn't know in the beginning was that a lot of the muddiness and the rumble and the noises in the background is all in the low end of the spectrum usually. And your voice, since it's up close, is what projects into the microphone. So whatever your tone of your voice is will be the richest portion of the sound clip. So you're supposed to trim that last part off. And that's why, like I said earlier, a lot of my old songs sounded hella bassy and hella muddy and not really clear. There wasn't crispness to the vocals because I wasn't touching that. And if anything, I was boosting some of the bottom end just to make it like, oh, you know what I'm saying? Like have that dirty sound to it. But once I started trimming that off around, depending on the person, like one thing that I did, I watched this video from this channel called Holistic Songwriters.
Mm-hmm.
They did this thing on Drake and how they created Drake. A lot more than just his sound, like his whole Drake-ness, but they talked about his sound and they were saying how he has them underwater sounding beats, and, the lo-fi and all of that driving that night type of shit. They do that on purpose. And the way they mix his vocals is they take all the bottom end out of his vocals. So like the whole top end of his songs is his voice. And then the bottom end is just the bass, the 808s, the drums, and whatever else mixed into it, which makes that Drake sound. And I kind of mix my stuff the same type of way prior to knowing that. So I thought that was kind of cool. But like basically if you cut off too much of the low end, it'll start to sound like the telephone effects.
Mm-hmm.
Like you got a megaphone and you're yelling through a megaphone type of thing. Like how you hear ad-libs in songs, like Migos songs and stuff. It'll sound like that as your main vocal. So so you just gotta kinda, what I do when I have a question, I just Google EQ frequency chart or EQ cheat sheet or something, and it'll pull up and it'll show what the EQ looks like, and then it'll tell you which things. Like if it sounds too nasally, it'll say move this part up, like lower this or do that. Or if it's too boxy, then cut this frequency out. Or if it's like the S's are too like or P's or whatever, you can cut certain frequencies out in the higher range to like lower that out and put a de-esser on it to kind of smooth it out. But the EQ should be used to basically kind of like correct the vocal and kind of shape it to where you want it to go so it sits in the mix properly. Because if there's too much low end or too much high end, it might bleed in with some of the other instruments and it won't sound clear. You won't be able to hear it and it won't stand out in front. So you do EQ to do that, to kind of polish the turd, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. So what about reverb, right?
Yeah. So reverb to me, reverb is what the secret sauce is. If you can learn how to reverb correctly, man, you could take a vocal from being like, oh, that's tight, to like, damn, I felt that in my soul, bro. You know what I'm saying? Or like, damn, that just sounds so beautiful in my ear, like reverb is, is the makeup to the vocal, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? You take the reverb off, you wake up next to that vocal the next morning, you're like, what the hell did I do last night?
Yeah, man. That sound amateur without it.
Yeah, right. So reverb is like the echoey kind of sound. It gives like an aura to it. It gives a color to the vocal, in my opinion, when I mix. Just think for examples of reverb that are kind of obvious. If you think of it, like most Travis Scott vocals, he has a specific kind of reverb that's like big and like hollow sounding. It's called like a church reverb, like if you're in a church and you yell and it sounds like echoes all over the place kind of thing. There's that kind of reverb. If you go listen to like most rappers, like not the melodic rappers, but like anybody who's just like a Kendrick or something or a Cole, their voices sound kind of like they're just talking to you through the song, but in a way to where it kind of blends into the background, so like it becomes part of the beat almost. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of what when I do reverbs, I treat it like I picture when I close my eyes and listen to the mix, I picture like water, and the beat playing and everything is like water and waves and shit. And then when the vocal comes up, I picture like an island poking out, or like a glacier coming out of the water. So if you put a lot of reverb on it, you know what I'm saying, the glacier kind of just chills out into the water. If you don't put any reverb on it, it kind of just sticks out, kind of like a tree almost. So you kind of want to find that happy medium to where it blends into the beat, but it also stands out, you know, and it's clear and you can hear everything, and you can hear the inflections and the voices and everything. So it's really delicate. It takes a lot of practice. I'm still learning things about reverb, but I think it's one of the most fun parts of mixing, is trying to figure out that perfect sound, because then that could just take it, even if it's like a bad quality recording, some decent reverb on it can make it sound a lot better.
Dope. Well, what about compression? That's another big one.
Yeah, compression. Compression. The Soulja Boy. Yeah, that was a rough one to learn too. Like, that was a lot of head bumps on that one, because it's like too much, too little, what settings you use, all this and that. One place that I learned a lot mixing wise, I learned not only from trial and error, but research. So I'm kind of like self-taught through YouTube most of the time, or just articles and stuff I'd find. But there's not a lot, but there's some resources available online for like mixing information. But there's this show called Into the Layer with, I forget his name. This famous mixer guy, but anyway, he teaches some stuff. He's kind of hard to understand if you don't know the like lingo of mixing and music and stuff. But essentially, I watched him, and then also Young Guru, Jay-Z's mixer. He has a few videos online that explain compression and explain EQ and explain reverb and all of that. That was a really big help for me. So if you guys want to check that out, just look up Young Guru mixing tips or something. That should pop up. But essentially, compression is like you set the parameters for the vocals to where if it gets a certain volume, it gets cut off. Anything above that threshold that you set of the vocal kind of squishes it down, and then it brings the bottom, so it kind of sandwiches it like that. So if you ever listen, like for me, when I listen to songs in like nice headphones, you hear the beat like everywhere in the headphone, but the vocals like that. It's nice and cool. So you hear everything, and then you'll hear the ad-libs coming in like this and coming in like this and like that and all of that, as opposed to everything just blah, blah, just everywhere, and it hurts your ears. But like one group that I love to listen to their songs in headphones because their mixing is always dope, is Ray Shrimmer. So their first couple albums, like if you listen to any of their hits, or like one song that I really like the mixing on is what's that song called?
This could be
or something like that.
Song is dope. Which one? This could be us. I love that song. I don't know how.
That song is so hard, right? Yeah, that song is hella hard. But the mixing on that song is so crazy because the vocal, it kind of entrances you, like Sway Lee's voice. The reverb on it makes it sound so good on the beat, and then you hear his harmonies come in from like all these different places, and all the way. It's tight, bro. Like their mixing is dope. Plus the songs are good, and the slap. So it's like, matchmaking. But
that's crazy.
Compression is what makes it sound like that. So it's hard to teach or explain parameters to people because it depends on the vocal. So like I said, my homie, he has a very rich lower tone voice. So I don't have to compress it too much. It just kind of like squish a little bit. And the middle of it is really like beefy. But like my voice sometimes, depending on what tone that I'm rapping in, I might have to compress it a little bit more just to make sure it's solid. Because my voice is kind of, I don't know. It's hard to explain my own self sometimes.
It's very dope is what it is. See, my voice is just incredible is what they usually say.
Yeah, you know, it's hard to teach perfection. You feel me? Yeah. You know,
sorry, no course for that coming out.
Yeah, right. You know, that's what they call a blessing.
Yeah.